Okay, I'm feeling like absolute garbage this week, so you know what? We're just going to do a tier list. Everyone's been asking for this. Now, I did struggle with how to do this list because I just felt it was weird to just throw a bunch of mics at a board and go, these are the best, these are the... So I'm basing this kind of on my reviews. These are all XLR microphones that I have reviewed at some point. And let's show you what it looks like here. So we have, I believe, 70 of them. I'm pretty sure I got all of them. I'm not including USB mics, and that's because there might be a bit of a bias. Now, I might do a USB only microphone tier list. I'm not sure. But this is what we've got so far. So let's take a look. We have the God tier, we have best, we have decent, we have meh, and we have avoid at all costs. Not going to be making a whole bunch of friends with this list here, but at the same time, this is also for me, these are a personal, this is what I think the mics are. This isn't necessarily what you might think. You might put something in a different thing. Just don't yell at me, okay? This is a problem I have with tier lists. People just yell at, oh, you put the microphone in the wrong spot. Let's just do this, and if this creates some bad press, we'll forget it ever happened and we'll move on, okay? These are kind of in an order that I didn't necessarily mean them to be in. I think they went in alphabetical. So yeah, we're just gonna go and we'll start alphabetically, I guess. So we have right here is the AKG P820, I believe. P820 is a great tube mic. I'd say it's one of the tube mics, one of the few tube mics that I've gotten a chance to utilize. And I've really liked it. I'm also looking at price to performance. So that's probably the biggest metric that I'm looking at for these microphones. Like there are some microphones that just have legendary histories. And you'll see that when we get into the Neumanns, into the Shures. That's part of it. But price to performance is a big one. And because of the price to performance on this microphone, I would put it under decent. And it's tough because I really liked it. But these kinds of mics, this was a really, really warm microphone, and not everybody could probably use one of these microphones or would find a lot of use for them. So, I don't know. It's going under decent. I've made the first controversial pick of the day. Let's keep moving on. So, next we have the SE Dynacaster. SEs are kind of undersold. Not a lot of people focus on SEs when they're going to buy a microphone. So how do you balance it with that? It's, well, you look at the price to performance. And for the Dynacaster, I'm going to put this one up one. And I think the SE Dynacaster is kind of overshadowed for a lot of people because it's not, from all the quote unquote broadcast microphones, it's not an SM7B. But the fact that this has a gain booster at the price it's at is pretty attractive for this microphone. So yeah, I think that goes in there. Next up, we have the I believe this is the 120. Okay, P120, I did a video. I love the microphone. And for the most part, I loved it because of its price to performance. AKG is obviously a great microphone maker. These aren't exactly the AKG brand, though. These are the very cheap, versatile microphones you can pick up. And one of the things about this microphone is its price. $100. It's a technically, quote-unquote, small diaphragm condenser. It's a slightly smaller than 1-inch condenser capsule, which does kind of make it interesting for doing instrumentation. And this is another one that I'm going to have to put into the best category. I think the AKG P120 is one of the best value condenser microphones. For $100, it's hard to go wrong, right? Okay, moving on. We have the AKG P420. And this one actually is going to come in a little lower than the P120. It's one of those microphones that it's great. It's got the polar patterns, and that's basically the better value you have for it. But then when you look at the 220 at a little bit of a cheaper cost, yeah, I would say this thing comes in at decent. I don't have the 220 in here. Oh, I do have the 220 in here. Okay, so we're going to skip right over and do the 220 because I think this one's going to be right alongside, maybe in front of that. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's move these around a little bit. Okay. So the P220 comes in a little bit better than the P420. And that's just because it's the same capsule. They sound the same, just doesn't have the dual capsule design. So, and that's something that a lot of people aren't going to need, although a few of the extra options on the 220 and the larger capsule do make it a little bit better. So I'll put the 220 in there. Now, the P170. One of my go-to pencil mics that I really do love, that I'm very much a fan of them for the price to the performance of them. However, since diving into more pencil mics and getting some more pencil mics that are a little bit of a higher value, I've softened a bit on my love for these. However, for the price they are, getting a match pair of these is super simple, super cheap. And yeah, I'm going to have to put these into decent. I can't put them down into meh because they are quite good. Okay. The next AKG product is the AKG D5. And this is one that is going to be the first one into meh. The AKG D5 is decent. It's a super cardioid microphone. It's got an okay sound. I feel like it's just there are so many other handheld microphones that I would purchase before this one. This one is so far down the handheld list that it's hard to take it out of this category. Ooh, and now we're going to start to make some friends. This is the T-Bone SC400. They sent me this microphone. I offered to pay for it because the review was not the most flattering. It was not worth the money I paid for shipping. If I recall, I paid for shipping. The T-Bone SC400 is an avoid microphone. Now, there is a caveat to this. If you're in the UK and you're not paying for the shipping on this microphone, I mean, it's going to be one of the cheapest condenser microphones you can pick up. I mean, sure, if you want. I don't know if it's something that I would actually drop money on. But, I mean, it's up to you. Like I said, in the UK, if you live anywhere other than the UK or Europe, I wouldn't bother. It's not worth it. Okay. The A.R.T. AR5. This is a ribbon microphone and a very cheap one. And I did a video on this, and I avoided a lot of the harsh criticism on it because I hadn't experienced a lot of ribbon mics in a review style prior. But since I've come up and done a few extra ribbon microphones, this one's going into avoid at all costs. I know it's cheap. I do know it's cheap. It is just so hard. For how cheap it is so hard to get a decent signal out of it. This doesn't really work for you unless you have a great preamp. It's a very noisy mic. We haven't gotten into any of the really, one of the ones that are going to have a lot of people hating on me, but we'll get there. Don't worry. We got the Aston Origin. So I fear for Aston mics right now. Kind of going under the radar is the fact that they were purchased by the company that owns Behringer, and not necessarily the best track record on gear. And I know that's going to actually get me a little bit of hate, but it's true. As it was when I did it, this goes into decent. However, a caveat here. I'm really hoping Aston Mics isn't turned into a really cheap microphone company that's just going for bargain basement internals. That's actually one of my bigger fears. And the next mic is kind of up there with those microphones that you're just could have been so much more. This is another Aston mic, the Stealth. This is the 4 microphones in one with the little switch you throw. There was a lot about this mic that I kind of liked. I like the different voicings of the microphone. I felt like they tried to do too much cheeky stuff with this microphone, like the mount. I didn't like the fact that if you wanted to have any kind of shock mount, you had to pay extra for it, where the type of mount you had, the little key that inserts, can go bad at any point, and you end up having to go out and buy a shock mount for it. So I'm putting this under meh. That's the Aston Stealth. And next up, we have the AudioTechnica AT4040. That's the one. It's been a long time since I've used an AT4040. However, this thing does have a bit of a professional pedigree. This is the microphone that Billie Eilish used on her first album. And that's impressive. She used a TLM 103 as well, but this was a good portion of her vocals. And that's kind of one of those things that I'm like, yeah, this is the kind of microphone you can use and you can get professional results. But then Dylan and I showed that you can do that with an SM58. So is that really a feather in the cap of the AT4040? I don't think so, but it is still pretty cool. Problem is the price is still relatively high on it, and there's been a lot of movement in the market. But I don't want to put it down here in meh. So it's going to go into decent. I think that's the best thing I can do for it. It is still a decent mic. It is still a good studio mic that you can purchase and you'll never have a concern. Would I bet my whole studio on it? I don't know. I mean, no studio is going to be worse off because you own it. So there is that. Next up, we have our first Neumann, and this is kind of an interesting one to do. This is a BCM104. This is the condenser broadcast microphone. Very unique microphones for their look, very unique microphones in a lot of ways, but also for broadcast microphones, these things is going to be the first one going into God tier. Not even a question in my mind. These things are fantastic sounding. They're fantastic for every voice. It's hard to find a voice that the BCM104 sounds bad on. It is a great microphone through and through. It is an expensive microphone, but it's not a Neumann expensive microphone. If you can afford a TLM 103, you can afford a BCM 104. Next up, though, we have the BCM705. This is the dynamic broadcast microphone that is kind of the brother or sister to the BCM 104. I don't have the same feelings towards this one. Price to performance, I think you're better off with a few other microphones. The RE series from Electrovoice, RE320, cheaper than this microphone. This one's going down into the meh pile. A Neumann is actually going into the meh pile. Yes, you can get some good sounds. You can EQ some great sounds out of this microphone. In radio college, this is the microphone we used to go on the radio, and it was decent. Would I buy it? No, I wouldn't spend my money on it. I would save up for the BCM 104, the BCM 104, or, just maybe go get an RE20 or an RE320, which sounds pretty good. Either way, that's in the meh pile. Now we have Beta58a is one of the best mics on this list. It is a fantastic microphone. It is expensive. Price to performance is going to be a little rough here. This is a live microphone, as it were. It has the supercardioid polar pattern. It's meant for stage performance. So it's a little more niche. You can use one of these in your studio. It's not exactly only a stage microphone. It's sound capture. You can do anything you want with it. And while the price to performance kind of knocks it down from God tier, because Shure and their stage mics, their SM series, this one I'm going to have to put into best. And this one's going at the front of the line for best, because it is, for many, it would be God tier. For many, it would be God tier. But for me, you can get away with an SM58, no problem. You could run your whole career as a professional singer, musician, and making billions of dollars, and you could still use an SM58. These ones, the Beta58, are still quite good, but they are a little more expensive. And I mean, they're a little more niche, let's just say. Blue Sona. This is the next one. This one is going to piss a lot of people off. Ooh, God tier? No. Is it the best? Hell no. Is it decent? I didn't think so. I thought it was muddy as hell. And this is the thing, right? Like, for the price the Blue Sona went for, it was not only dark, because I can let a dark mic, that's fine. The P820 or P840, whatever it was, that was a dark mic. This one's dark and muddy, and I'm gonna have to put it into meh. Do I put it in avoid all costs? No, I can see some people really liking the Blue Sona. From the aesthetic perspective, sure. From the you can EQ it out, sure, you're fine. It is a nice build quality. It has a lot going for it, but damn, is it ever dark and muddy. It's, ugh. All right, moving on. AKG C414 XLS. I have not done the other, what is it, the XL2? I have not reviewed that. I've used it before in past, but I've never used it in a review, and that's what this is all about. This is the XLS. And the C414 XLS is easily one of my favorite microphones of all time. However, we're going price to performance here, and this breaks my heart because from a price to performance perspective, just going to put it at the front of the line there for best. Because yes, it is one of the best microphones of all time for as far as I'm concerned. I still don't own one. And do you know why I don't own one? Because of its price. And that's something that should make you think twice about a microphone. If you can get the same quality out of a microphone, like an NT1 Signature series is $150 I think, or 160. You can do the same thing with that. Now, the polar patterns on this make it a little different. Well, go get an NT2A and you can do the same thing with it. Yes, I love this microphone. I love how it sounds on me. I don't need a lot of EQ on it, but damn the price. Whew, that's a hard one to swallow. So for that, it's at the top of the best category. And Samson does a few on this list that they're appearing for. And I'm sorry, guys. The CO2s, they're really cheap. Go get yourself some P170s instead. This is going into the avoid at all costs. It's not worth it. So it's still spending money to get a product that kind of fails you, that kind of gives you a sub-quality product, and that's just not worth it in my mind. That's something that, you know, save up an extra month and go get the P170s or whatever you have to do. It's just not worth the money. And we're staying right in the avoid at all costs with the DM14V, I believe it is. This is the Scarlett one, eh? Yeah. None of the Scarlett microphones that have been released have been good. Okay? If they release a Scarlett microphone, it's going into the avoid at all costs. I'm sorry, they're e-waste as far as I'm concerned. And that's being gentle. Okay? Next up we have, this is the IsoVox mic, the IsoMic. And this one, not complete trashed here. And I know they're probably upset hearing something like that, but here's the deal. This microphone requires the IsoVox 2 in order to sound good. You take it out of the box, and it's basically got everything rolled off to try to roll off that muddiness, or the boxiness, sorry, from the IsoVox 2. So that basically, you can't just go buy this mic. It's an $1,800 Canadian. I think it's like $1,400 US. You can't just go buy this and use it. You need the IsoVox because the frequencies that it's rolled off sound ridiculous outside of the box. So for that reason, plus the price to performance, this is going into meh. That's a very expensive microphone in the meh category. I do also have to say, one of the sexiest mics and most nicest builds on a microphone. Aircraft aluminum. It's just so hard to sell at that price without the what is it, like the $1,200 voiceover booth. Dylan's using it. He loves it. It's great. He uses this microphone in it, and that's great. But altogether, you're spending like $2,700 just for a mic to sound like that when other mics will work, as we said before. Now for the Fifine K688. And this is a tough one. We have a couple really cheap microphones on this list. The Fifine is one. The Maono is the other. I've got two Maonos on this. I don't know if you realize I've done more than one Maono mic review. One is way back. That's going to be a funny one. K688. See, I loved the sound of it for the price. The price to performance would have actually put it into best. Easily would have put it into best. This was a great sounding microphone. It was great, but that USB brings it down to meh. The quality control on these things, and this is the one thing that kind of puts it into this, is you're rolling the dice on these things. Yeah, they'll send you another one. It's a little awkward, but I mean, the quality control needs to come up for them. I've got a new Fifine on the way, the AM8 or something like that. So we'll see how that fares. But for now, the quality control has to get the K688 kind of a little bit further down. Next up, Neatmic's King B2. This is a microphone that really fell out. As soon as Neatmics was purchased, a lot of people got a little nervous about them. I wasn't really one of them, although I didn't like the original design. I liked the microphones. I didn't like how they looked. I liked the new design. I wasn't as thrilled with the sound quality on the new ones. It's still good. Like the Neatmic's King B2 sounded fine. And the price was just right. I haven't looked at the prices recently. They're probably quite a bit cheaper. The Neatmic's King B2 is still, from a price to performance, that's really hard to see, on that screen. Oh. Price to performance, it sounds fantastic. The one thing that keeps us away from being further up the tier list is its size. It is ridiculously large. It gets in your way. It's hard to read copy or to do anything with. It's such a big microphone, and that's disappointing because I feel like they made it big on purpose, which is kind of annoying. So, next up, LA. This is the 220. LA220 from Lawton Audio. You haven't seen a lot of this. A lot of people kind of passing over Lawton, kind of like SE. Lawton is kind of left in the dust. Wonderful microphones. Lovely. They sound decent. They're great. They're really customizable with their roll-offs and stuff like that, which is, these things are kind of the ultimate instrumentation microphones. And for that reason, I'm going to put them up here in the best category. If you haven't seen the Lawton microphones, go check out my review. I'll link it up here or whatever. Actually, is it? Yeah, it's right up here. Actually, I'm way up at the corner, so it's going to be right up here. They're fantastic microphones. They sound great. They've got a nice range. We've got some other Lawton mics, I think, that we're going to be covering here as well. But that is a great start, and they're not expensive for what they are. So definitely check out the LA220. LCT440. This is the Lewitt. This one, whew, I like the Lewitt LCT440. It's a great microphone. From the perspective of somebody that doesn't have a bevy of these microphones sitting in their closet, just able to go reach one, this thing's going up here in the best, maybe even God tier for some. I haven't reached for it since I got it and reviewed it, which is a bit of a pity. Like, I feel like this mic doesn't get the reward it deserves. But it also, like, I reached for so many others, and it's just not on my list. I don't know. I'm going to put it down here into decent. Yeah, like, I'm going to move it up in the decent list. Let's move it up to here. Because even from a price to performance perspective, it's good. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to keep that. We still got a long ways to go. This is the Lawton Audio LS308. This is the microphone that I said was replacing the SM7B for me. And it did. And because of that, God tier. This is actually going into the BCM105. This is right now the best microphone that I've used. I love the LS308. I've seen some more YouTubers using it, actually. It's actually the go-to for a lot of YouTubers. It's just such a great sounding microphone. It's a condenser. It's an end address condenser. It has great off-axis rejection. I did the toilet flush test with this thing. Time for the toilet test with the LS208. Nah, not the actual toilet flush, just it was so good. It is prohibitively expensive, but I don't care. It's that good. It's such a good microphone that I definitely put it into God tier. Go check out my review on it. It's fantastic. Now we're getting into a Maono that a lot of you probably don't know I reviewed. Maono? Maono. Moana? This is the Maono Au04. And I'm going to be putting some of the video where I reviewed this. This is years ago. One of my first microphone reviews was this microphone. It was super cheap at the time, and I was pretty pumped about this microphone. Paid for it with my own money. It wasn't sent to me. I wasn't doing anything for free product. But it was one of those where I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty good for, I think it was $60. The problem with this microphone now, though, is it's come such a long way in the microphone industry. There's so much higher standards for microphones, even at a $60 mark, that this thing's kind of going to go into the meh drawer. I would put it avoid at all costs, but still got to say, I wasn't turned off by the sound. The price to performance was pretty decent. Again, though, you get a lot in that you don't need to get. Like, just give me the mic, give me the shock mount. I don't need all the other crap along with it because they want to sell you more. So you buy one of the packages. Don't bother. The mic's decent. It's not going to last you a long time, but it is an okay microphone. Which leads us to the next Maono. This is the Maono PD200x. This is a very cheap microphone. But this is also a very cheap and relatively decent microphone. But the one thing I really like about this microphone is they're trying to come out with companion apps, control apps for these microphones. This is a USB XLR. So on the USB side, you can go in and you can actually do some like compression, limiting, all that stuff. It sucks. It's utter garbage on this thing. The companion app sucks, flat out. But I like where they're headed. This is a microphone that I think is something that it's nice to see what Fifine is doing. I like where they're going with this. And because the Fifine K688 went so low and this one, price to performance, I don't know if I'd put it in best, but I'll put it in here. From a starter mic perspective, for somebody that just wants to plug in a mic and go, that's an attractive offer right there. I think that'd be your go-to. Yeah, and I know that's going to drive a few people nuts, but I don't care. Okay, so this one is the NTG3 by Rode. This is a great shotgun mic. I prefer the MKH416, which I'm using right now, from an EQ perspective. So the reason I use the MKH416 is I do have to do less to it in post. The NTG3, I do still have to brush up. However, this is a fantastic mic, and for the price, for what you get it for, it's like $400 less than the MKH416. That puts it into the best category easily. Easily. It is a fantastic microphone. And then, of course, we have the MKH416. Let's not kid around here. Let's just put this up here. Okay. I'm putting this behind the Lewitt Audio LS308. That's how much I love the LS308. It's a fantastic mic. This is my go-to. I love this boom mic, the MKH416. It is fantastic. It is the one microphone that if it like broke or if it went away in the studio, I would instantly go out and spend the money on another one. There's very few microphones in here that I could say that I would actually go out and like this day it breaks, that I'd go out and go, no, we need another one. So that's actually a bit of a feather in its cap, I'd say. Moving on, we have the MXL 770. Yeah. I crushed it with a sledgehammer and I didn't feel bad about it. So if you want to check out that video, it's right up here. That's why it's at avoid all costs. It's not that great mic. The mic bodies are great. If you want to do like the building in, sure, they're great mic bodies to build in, but does it have to come with all the capsule and all that stuff? I don't know. Anyways, AT. So AudioTechnica AT2040. This is one of the things that pissed me off the most back in the 2020, 2021 era, is there was this massive push for podcasters, for podcasting, quote unquote, broadcast microphones. And this was one of those that came out. There's another one on this list that's just as bad for it, and it's going to be going into the same place. Stop making microphones for money grabs. It felt like very little thought went into this. It wasn't overly cheap in comparison. It didn't sound better. And this is the thing. Does it sound better than an SM58? If you're more expensive than an SM58 and you don't sound better, or at least as good as an SM58, you're trashed here. Avoid at all costs. Sorry, Audio-Technica. It kind of disappointed me that you even brought that out. Or I would have liked a little bit more engineering put into it, because it actually had a decent design. It didn't sound that great. NT2A, this is the Rode microphone. This is easily going into the best. This is one of my favorite. This was the voiceover mic I started with, and I'm putting it above the AKG C414 XLS. Why? Because I bought it instead of the XLS, instead of the C414 XLS. And I bought it because it was cheaper, but you still got a great freaking product. I voice a couple radio stations with that microphone. That's good. Like that is just God tier. You know what? It would be another one that I would go out and purchase right away if it broke. All right, you know what? Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm putting it in here under the MKH416. The NT2A is just so good. And from a price perspective as well. Yeah, it's just too good. Next up, we have the Synco Mic D2. And this is a microphone that isn't as good as a shotgun microphone. Not even close. Doesn't come close to the Rode NTG3. Doesn't come close to the MKH416 by a mile. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, it's like the poor man's MKH416. It sounds okay. It sounds good. Sounding close is relative. Voice to voice, room to room. But the price on it, my goodness. The problem I have here is Synco has had some interesting practices in the past. Which has made me wonder about some of their products. I'm going to put them into meh. And that's mostly from it kind of breaks my heart. I do like them. I think the microphone is pretty decent, but you're buying into an ecosystem that I'm not so sure on. If you need a boom mic, yeah, this is another one that like you don't have a lot of money. Sure, pick it up. But there might be some caveats with it when you do. So, okay, so we have the OC16. I believe this is the 16. It's hard to tell in these little thumbnails. The OC16 is a fantastic microphone. Price to performance, it's going up here easily. Moving it above this C415 XLS, and that's because of price. The performance on it is stellar. The performance on it is fantastic. If this existed, or if I knew, no, I don't think it existed 4 years ago. If this existed 4 years ago, I might not have even thought about the C414 XLS. That's a pretty damning statement. This OC16 is fantastic for its price. The OC18 here is kind of a weird one. The OC18 is a fantastic microphone, a little bit cost prohibitive for what you get, because the OC16 is basically the same microphone, just has a little bit less usability. It's still a great microphone. I'm going to put it in decent, and I'm going to put it up here in decent. And the reason is yes, it's a great microphone. It has a lot of great qualities to it, but for the price, unless you're using it to match with the OC818 and you're just buying the mic for the mic, I would suggest going with the OC16. The OC818, however, is a phenomenal mic. As far as the mics, this is the only dual capsule I've ever reviewed, and I want to get into do some more. I have reached out to a few companies to do some with their dual mics, and it's the fact that you can record the capsules separately, blah, blah, blah. Phenomenal. This thing's going up into tier list at the top. OC818 is god tiered. It's not the most god tiered, and the only thing holding it back is cost. It's not really their fault. OC series, or the OC818 is one of the best that I've ever reviewed. It is the most versatile microphone I've ever reviewed by a mile. Yeah, it's just like it's up there. I wouldn't put it above much else just from a price perspective, but it is what it is. I mean, we have some more expensive microphones on the way, don't you worry. Podmic. So the Podmic's difficult. When I first reviewed the Podmic, I was like, but I wasn't reviewing it through Rodecaster Pro. And at the time, in order to get what you really wanted out of the Podmic, you kind of needed the Aphex processing. If you don't have a Rodecaster Pro, Podmic's down here for me. If you have a Rodecaster Pro, it's up higher. It's not a horrible purchase. I don't think this microphone lives up to its full potential, however, without that. And as we get into the Podmic USB, this is where it changes. This is a microphone that has USB capabilities that you can use those effects with. It's also the XLR version. It comes with that nice little pop filter. This thing's going into best, and this is actually going a little ways up here. I'm putting this up. I love the Podmic USB. It is one of my favorite mics over the past, 2 years that have released. It's so good, and it's so versatile, and it looks awesome too. And that little pop filter, I don't know if they've released it for the rest of the mics. I haven't looked into what Rode's been doing. But yeah, that is a fantastic microphone. And it's so cheap too. Like, they're super cheap. By the way, links to all this stuff is down below in case you're wondering. Pyle PDMIC58. Where do you think this one's going? Oh, I hated this microphone. It was garbage. Yes, this microphone's going right to the top of avoid all costs. No, wait. It's going right to the bottom. This is a microphone that you should never buy. I don't care that it's $12. I don't care. Do not buy this microphone. You may blow up your units, your interface. Just don't buy it. Speaking of microphones that I really didn't like, this is the Samson this one's the Q9u. But we're going to kind of bundle this up with the Q9u and the Q9x. Muddy as hell. I don't find any nice sounds from this microphone. I'm not a big fan of the microphone. And famously, I think I burned my bridge with Samson by doing so. And part of that was their reasoning for sending me the Q9X after I gave the Q9U a bad review. Now, in case you don't know, the Q9X is basically the exact same as the Q9U. It just does not have the USB. So it's basically just an XLR. The thing broke within 6 months of using it. I gave it to my son to use because he liked the look of it. He didn't even like it. It ended up breaking. It just doesn't work anymore. So Q9X or Q9U, I put it in avoid at all costs. You do you, though. I know that's going to drive people nuts. Okay, you can only see the grills on these microphones, but you know damn well what they are. These are the ElectroVoice RE20, 27, and 320. So let's do the RE20. This thing's going God tier. And it's going God tier for a few reasons. That thing has been the staple of the broadcast industry since the 60s, I think. The variable D technology for proximity effect is goated. It's so good. This mic has been in your ears more than you will ever know. It's such a fantastic mic, even from its price, which isn't that bad when you think about what you get. Next up is the RE27. I think this is a fantastic microphone. I don't think it's in God tier from the price. For what you get for that upgrade over the RE20, I don't think it's as good. Oh, by the way, I'm going to put this one up a little bit. Yeah, RE20. Yeah, right there. I don't think it's as good, the RE27 over the RE20. So, yeah, that's going into the best. I'd put it down. Maybe I'll put it... Nah, I think I liked where I had it. The 320, however, this microphone is going into the best column as well, but it's going higher than the RE27. And I'm going to actually put this right around here. Now, the reason the RE320 was so good is because of its price, is because it gave an entry-level ElectroVoice RE series microphone for podcasters. It's kind of the podcaster mic instead of broadcaster, but it sounds fantastic. It's an ElectroVoice through and through. I love the 320. It's at the top of the list for my microphones for sure that I reach for when I've got to do something with a microphone. And that gets it right up there. And the last entry from Samson on this list, I believe, anyways, this is the Samson Q2u. This thing I held in high regard for quite some time. The problem is, the only thing it had going for it was an accessible XLR USB with an okay sound that was cheap. The problem is you now have the Maono, you have Fifine coming in. This thing's kind of rolling in 2024 as a meh. I wouldn't say buy this microphone over the Maono PD200x. Next up, we have the SE Dynacaster DCM3, DCM6. These were the Dynacaster cast-offs, or the sequels, if you will. One, and I put them together here because they're the same mic. One has a booster on it. I'm going to put these on decent, but they're going to be on the low end of decent. They are great microphones. I feel like SE is so undervalued in the industry. Not a lot of people go towards SE, and I'm not sure why. I like these microphones. They're a great starter mic. The DMC3, I think it is, the 3 on that series without the gain booster was a great microphone, but it did need a mic booster. And then the DMC6 was a great sounding mic. It had the booster, but it was a little more expensive. So I'm going to put them both into decent. Definitely not a horrible mic to grab for your first one. However, I would love to see more people using them. You just don't see it on the market. SE has another one here. This is the V7. Now, the V7, out of all of the handheld microphones, I put the D5 down here. The V7's going in decent. It's going quite a ways up into decent. It is a great handheld mic. This is personal preference, though. A lot of people prefer one handheld mic over another. The SE V7 is very, very articulated, and it's a little bright. Not my go-to. However, it is still it's a great mic, and it's, from a handheld perspective, it's up there with Shure. But I think its EQ profile does kind of set it apart a little bit and kind of hold it back. Just for me, anyways. Which brings us to the SE2200. This is the condenser microphone that kind of goes hand in hand with the AKG P series, and all that. And I would say it's about in that ballpark from a price to performance. You got to remember, price to performance is big here. And I think I'd put it above the AKG P820. It was a great microphone. I like how it sounded. It was a good price. It came with a nice shock mount. Is it the one that I would reach for? No, I reach for other microphones, but I really did like it. I actually used it on the radio for quite some time. It was my go-to microphone. Definitely a good mic. SEV2. I'm sorry, SE. This one's going into avoid at all costs. The handling noise on this was egregious. The sound on the microphone wasn't the best. It is a cheap microphone. Sure, it's a cheap microphone if you're not going to touch it. However, I don't know many stage performers that don't grab their microphone. And that's a big problem for me. And we'll talk about alternates to this in a few, because we have a few mics left here. Don't worry. We've got a few left. The SE-X1S or the SEX1S. This was a great microphone for its price. I haven't done any SE-X1R or anything like that. This is just the SE-X1S, the SEX1S. It was a great price to performance microphone. This is the one with the pop filter, the metal pop filter I really liked. I think it was. Anyways, this microphone is kind of with the SE2200. I think it kind of goes hand in hand. I'm going to put it above the 2200 because I believe this one was a little cheaper. I did not like, oh, you know what? I've got to bring this down. I've got to bring it down. Yeah, you know what? I've got to bring it down here. I'm sorry, SE. I love you. This one, I remember the problem I had with this is you could throw the switches so easily that you ended up getting subpar recordings. I actually accidentally recorded my first video with it with the switch thrown, and it sounded like trash. Yeah, those switches were a problem on that. Sorry, SE. Moving up to a Shure product, we have the Shure MV7. This is not the MV7X. This is the original MV7. I never reviewed the MV7X. And this is one that I like it. I thought they tried to use the Shure SM7B as like a sales pitch when it's not an SM7B and it's not even close. It's kind of very much its own standalone microphone. However, I wasn't too disappointed in it. I really liked it. It wouldn't be my go-to. I thought the USB sounded good. I thought the XLR sounded like garbage. I like the USB though. However, if you're doing some of your own post-processing, it's going to sound fine. But it's at the low end of decent. I wasn't a big fan of it I think the problem is from the marketing, them kind of positioning it as an SM7B kind of thing. I don't know. As soon as I got it and I'm like, well, this isn't no SM7B, I was a little disappointed. So I don't know what this next mic is. and I don't really want to take a guess on it. So I think I'm just going to put that to the end. And I'll see if I can remember what it is by the time we get to the end. Anyways, we have the SM48 up next. And while this is kind of the comparative to the SEV2, I think this thing has a little bit more legs than the SEV2, but not by much. The SM48 is mildly underwhelming. It is a nice price to performance microphone. However, handling noise, all the things that the SM58 is legendary for, just buy an SM58. Just trust me. Next up, we have the SM7B, and I'm going to make some enemies here because this microphone is legendary in a lot of ways. Definitely. A lot of people think it just goes up here and you're done. I don't think so. Is it top tier best or is it low tier god tier? So I think I'm going to put it low tier god tier, and for one reason, and that is because of the impact it's had on society and everything it is. But from a sound perspective and everything that needs to be done with it, I still prefer the LS308 over it. So sorry. Texone Audio Products Stellar X2. I actually had to take this microphone or this video down because people were getting scammed from it, which is really disappointing. There's somebody pretending to be Texone, or maybe Texone themselves. They haven't responded to me, but they're reaching out and telling people, we'll send you the microphone. All you got to do is this. And people are reaching out to me, and it sounds like you have to buy the mic, quote unquote. So you send money to buy the mic and nothing comes from the sounds of it. I don't know what's going on, but they're using my face in it. So I just deleted the video. I loved this mic though. It sounds fantastic. I'm going to put it at the low end of decent. You can't get the Stellar X2 anymore. I don't think you can. So maybe it might be worth it to look at the Stellar X3, or if you can get this used. I've given this to Dylan. Dylan loves it. It sounds fantastic. It's very warm for what it is. But again, it's also a pretty decent mic. Next up, this is the Tascam TM70. And if you remember, I reviewed this shortly after I reviewed the Tascam Mixcast 4. They sent me one of these as well. And I kind of lambasted it. And this is kind of like right alongside of a lot of the other microphones like the AT2040 here. Yes, it's going in to avoid all costs. It was a money grab for podcasters. $100 for a microphone that was meh. They threw it together with subpar parts and just released it as like, here's a podcaster mic. And it felt disingenuous at best. I was really disappointed in that. Again, go buy an SM7B. If it's between those, just buy an SM7B. Next up, the Apex 435B. This is a lesser known microphone that I reviewed way back in the day, and I didn't even review it. I just did like a comparison video, like one of my first 4 videos. And at the time, it was my first ever condenser microphone that I went out and I purchased with my own money years ago. And it wasn't even the 435B. This was like way back in 2006, I think. It was just the 435. And I loved it. It was $100. It was great. It was noisy as hell. But at the time, it would have been up in the decent spot here. But because, I mean, I'll put it into meh, at the lower end of meh, because yeah, for $100, it was great. Think about what you can get for that $100 now, though. The AKG P120, things that weren't around back then. And nothing they've put out has excited me since. So I'll just leave it at that. Now we have I believe this one is the 102. TLM 102, Neumann, TLM 102. This one's easily one of the best. I'm going to put it up at the top of the list. Yeah, I'm going to still keep the OC16 here. Maybe put this down here. TLM 102 is one of my favorite voiceover mics. I ended up giving it back to my friend. I should get one. I do love the TLM 102. For the longest time, it was my go-to. Definitely a great microphone. And the TLM 103, same thing. I prefer the 102 from a price to performance. So I'm going to be putting this further down the list on before the lot. And from a price to performance perspective, it's really hard to argue the TLM 103 over the TLM 102 when that $500 difference. I don't think I think it might be $300 difference in the US. But for me, I think it's about a $500 difference. Not worth it. This one is the Pyle PR40, another broadcast microphone. And I wasn't the biggest fan of this as I could have been. It was really, really bright. I know a lot of broadcasters swear by the Pyle PR40. Meh. I'm putting this one down into the meh pile, but I'll put it up near the front. It is there's a lot of radio stations that like it. If you're sibilant, this thing has a lot of S's. And now, let's start to piss some people off big time. The Neumann U87 AI. I love it. It's a great mic, and I'm going to put it in God tier, but I'm not putting it at the top. From a price to performance, and I know there's going to be a lot of engineers that are going to be like, what are you talking about? It's okay. I like it. The U89i, which is next, or the U89, sorry, is next. I'm putting that above. I would actually put that probably right up here. I prefer the U89 over the U87 AI. And I know that's a controversial statement. However, the Neumann U87 AI has never been special to me. I've never owned one. Maybe that's part of the problem, but I'm not overwhelmed by it. It sounds decent on everything, but it's like, yeah, you got to take price into perspective here. And that's one of the biggest things about this list and why I wanted to do this list in this way, because price to performance matters. When you can get so much out of an MKH416 for the price that it is at $1,000 compared to the price of the U87 AI, I would take the MKH416 every time. That's why it's underneath the MKH416. Same with the RE20. Same with the U89. Same with the NT2A. Oh my God. The NT2A versus the Neumann U87 AI. I would take the NT2A every time from price to performance. So let's see some people get mad at me for that. Wave DX. Ooh, this is probably my least popular review that I've ever done. The Wave DX. And this one is, I think, the most downvotes. I'm not a big fan of the microphone as it was. The reason is it sounded like trash. It was just a very, very bright, kind of painful on the ears microphone. And I understand it was supposed to be used with the Wave DX, kind of like the Podmic. It's a good example. This would be the Wave version of the Podmic, which I wasn't a fan of. But then you use it with the software that it's supposed to be used with, and it sounds fantastic. So this, I'm just going to put it down underneath the Podmic. I did prefer the sound of the Podmic over the Wave DX. I didn't think the Podmic was shrieking, and that thing was shrieking on my sibilants. So, Worker mic, or this was the, Worker B. The Neat Mic's Worker B, the original, the OG. I loved this thing. I hated that it looked. It's going under decent. I don't have much to say about it. There was a lot of things that irritated me about the Neat Mics. But yeah, a great little microphone. However, I feel like they left a lot on the table with that. Behringer XM8500. This is where I make some more enemies. This one is a meh. This one is a higher end of meh. And the reason is because of its price. Okay, just gonna move this one back. So higher end of meh. The price on it is its only redeeming factor. I don't like it. Its off-axis rejection is horrible. You have to be right on axis for it to really catch the character of your voice. And that's one of the things that really stood out to me when I started to record with it. And when you record and you're singing, you use dynamics on a microphone, right? You back off when you're loud, you get in close when you're low, or you get in close when you're quiet. And this thing just did not work well with dynamics. The off-axis rejection was just giving me the middle finger the whole time, and that's annoying. That's why it's at the top end of meh. Yellowtech IXM Podcaster. I even forgot I did this thing. This was a brutally expensive microphone, and at the time, it would have been up in best. When this thing was released, it was just stupid. Like, you could record onto the microphone. Like, how dumb is that? That's so awesome. I feel like we've come a long way since that was like a really big deal. And for the price that this thing comes in at, I hate it to say it, Yellowtech, but that's in the meh. I'll maybe move it up a bit, but I wouldn't put it much further. for the price of what you get, you can do so much with the Rode Wireless Pro. You know, I mean, you can do the exact same thing with the Rode Wireless Pro. It's hard to justify what that is for its price. Next up, we have, you know what? I'm leaving this to the end. The Blue Spark SL. And I like this one. This was actually I was pleasantly surprised by the Blue Spark SL, and the price it's at gets it into the decent end. Don't have a lot to say about it. It was a decent condenser microphone. It kind of sits in the P120 era of price point. Maybe the P420. I would prefer it over the P420. I think that's where I'd go with that. And it's cheaper than the P420. So that's why that's where it's at. Next up, we have the 1800S. And I couldn't put this further down this list. It has to be at the bottom. The 1800S from Behringer is the worst microphone I've ever used. Hands down. It is I'm actually going to be revisiting it in a video coming up soon. Stay tuned for that. SM7DB, I forgot. I actually did include this on the list. Where did I put the SM7B? I put it down here. So we're going to put this one below the SM7B. The SM7DB is just a more expensive SM7B with a gain booster. You know what? No, actually, as I say it, I'm moving it down to best. It's still an SM7B. I guess maybe it needs to be up at the top of best. I don't think in today's era with the interfaces we have, we no longer have interfaces with 48 or 45 dB of gain. Most of them have 60 plus. Which means the original SM7B is just fine. People disagree with me all you want. I just think that this thing is just a reissue. It was the wrong reissue for sure to make, as far as I'm concerned. All right, we're getting down to the end. This is the Rode NT1. And there's a lot that I have to say about the Rode NT1. It is probably the best price to performance microphone, hands down. It's a fantastic mic system. $160 for the Signature Series. You can't go wrong. Comes in colors. Hey, that's fun. There's really nowhere else to put it. I'm putting it up here. I'm putting it up into God tier. The NT1 is like the first condenser microphone you should buy for your studio. And then when you go into a professional studio, guess what you're going to see there? You're going to see an NT1. It'll be set up somewhere in the room. It'll be used for something somewhere in the room. It's fantastic. With the included pop filter and all that stuff and the whole system you get for the NT1 for $160 US. You can't beat that. You just can't beat that. It's such a good microphone. In fact, I'm going to move it up here. This is a microphone I would buy before an SM7B. This is a microphone I'd buy before the OC818, just price alone. It's just such a good microphone. You know what? Let's bring it up below the NT2A. I prefer the NT2A just a little bit. Not to be picky. I like the polar patterns on the NT2A. It's not quite as bright. It's a little fuller of a sound. But the NT1's up there. It's God tier. Easy God tier. And of course, the SM58. This is going to surprise nobody. If you've been a fan of this channel for some time, you know how I feel about the SM58. And this one is an easy top of God tier. Just that it's such a versatile microphone for anything. You can run a podcast with it. You can do a professional song with it, as we did with A.R.T. It's such a good microphone. I don't think price to performance, you can find a better microphone than the SM58. It's so good. Anyways, I can't wait to hear from everybody who thinks I did this wrong. Let me know down below. Oh dear God, this is going to go poorly. I hope you enjoyed this tier list. I know this is a bit of a longer one, but I think this is the only video I'm going to be putting out this week because I'm a little sick. So cheers, guys. All the angry comments can go down below. My name's Dylan, just so you know. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you next video.